The history of Indian writing in English it is relatively short. Okay, it is only hardly 1.5 centuries old. Now we'll discuss about the first writer. Okay, the first book written by an Indian in English was by Sheikh Deen Mohammed, and the title of the work is, it is basically a kind of a travel narrative, and the title of the work is Travels of Deen Mohammed, and it was published in the year 1973 in England. So you have to remember this particular name. It is also mentioned in your textbook. Okay, and now you can see we were much influenced, as I've told you in the beginning, we were much influenced by the Western form of the novel, and most of the writings are from that particular section. Okay, now another important development that we have to mention in this particular context is Macaulay's Minute on Indian Education in the year 1835. It is more or less a kind of, there is a unanimity among the literary historians and scholars that the creative writing in English in India began much before Macaulay's Minute on Indian Education, but it has got a tremendous impact on Indian writing, okay, in English, because especially when the education in English, when it got spread in India, it has got a tremendous influence on the Indian. So because of that, you have to remember this particular concept called Macaulay's Minute on Indian education, which came in the 1835, has got an impact on the Indian literature in English. Okay. Now, next idea that I would like to discuss up here is, like, there is a complex identity of Indian English literature, especially in its earliest phase. What exactly that makes Indian English literature? This is like a very important question, we can say. Okay, we have already seen the categorization of Gokak, like all the 5 broad categories that are there behind, 5 broad categories that accommodate Indian writing in English. Now the question is, like, what is all about this Indo-Anglian writing by Englishmen and Indian writing in English by indigenously rooted experiences and responses. That is another important distinction that we have to talk about. There is a distinction between Indo-Anglian writing and Indian writing in English, okay, or Indo-English writing, you can say. There is a kind of a distinction. Indo-Anglian writing, it's the writing by Englishmen on Indian subjects, or by heavily anglicized Indians. They are like more like English than like Indians. Such type of people we call as heavily anglicized Indians. Okay, so how they look at Indian life with a kind of an alienated eyes, with their alienated eyes, they are more of English, and because of that there is a kind of an alienation. So they look at Indian life as that of an English. Okay, so that such type of writing you can call as Indo-Anglian writing. Okay. On the other hand, Indian writing in English means for expressing the indigenously rooted experiences and responses, or you can say the unself-conscious, or you can say even the writings of foreigners who are married to Indians or the naturalized Indian citizens. So they're discussing about Indian themes, they're discussing about Indian culture, they're discussing about Indian experiences as an Indian. So all such writings we categorize as Indian writing in English. Okay, so there is a distinction between the two. Now, the first important person that we have to remember in the context is Henry Louis Vivian Thoreau. He was a poet and a novelist, and he is considered by some scholars the first Indo-Anglian writer. He lived between 1809 to 1831. You don't have to remember the exact year, but roughly you should have an idea that he lived in the first 3 decades poets of the 19th century. Then we have Kashi Prasad Ghoshe, and he describes himself as the first Hindu who was ventured to publish a volume of English poems. And the name of the work is the Sher, which is basically a Persian term for minstrel. So he is also a popular figure, you can say. And many Indians, followed Drosio and Ghosh, some important names of the 19th and early 20th century. All these names are important, and some you cannot forget. One is Mikhail Madhusudan Dutt, who lived from 1827 to 73. Then Ramesha Chandra Dutt, we'll discuss about him later. Then we have Aru Dutt, we have Toru Dutt, a very important writer, Toru Dutt. You cannot forget Toru Dutt. She lived between 1856 to 77. Then we have Aurobindo Ghosh, then we have Manmohan Ghosh, and we have Sarojini Naidu. Okay, so these are the important writers. And another point that I would like to discuss in this context, that most of the writers, they were from the upper class, or you can say the upper caste. Okay, why? Because there is a kind of Anglo-mania among the upper caste people or upper class people in India during that particular time, especially when we were under the rule of Britain, or we were under British rule. So most of the writers, they belong to the upper caste and also upper class. Then important writers have told you, Toru Dutt, besides many poems and also a French novel, her English novel is Bianca, the young Spanish maiden. Okay, you have to remember that particular work. Then we have Ramesh Chandra Dutt. Ramesh Chandra Dutt is a famous, novelist of the 20th century. The beginning, in the early decades of the 20th century. The most important work is The Slave Girl of Agra, an historical romance which came in the year 1909. It discusses about the social life, Mughal social life of the 16th and 17th. Another important work of Ramesh Chandra Dutt is The Lake of Farms, a story of Indian domestic life which revolves around Calcutta, or you can say the social life of Calcutta. Okay, so that is, you can say, an overview to Indian writing in English. And the next session we'll discuss in detail about the writers who are mentioned in your textbook. Okay, thank you. Stay at home, stay safe, and stay tuned. God bless.